Hello, Vida. Welcome. We're going to get started here. Hi, my name is Louis Delaware. Actually, let me do this. I need to change something here so I can see what I'm looking at. I'm Louis Delaware. I'm the president and founder of the Living in Place Institute, and I am really thrilled to have Barbara Barton with me tonight. I'm going to move a slide here forward, but tonight's presentation, why now is the time to build a forever living in place home, in essence, a Phoenix home rising out of the ashes for everybody. So here's my information, and I'll share it again later in regards to my email address. Barbara and I are both what's called CLIP, or Certified Living in Place Professionals. I happen to be number one because I came up with a program, and Barbara happens to be number 5 as part of this mix. Oh, 4, you're right. Thank you. 4. Gunner's number 5. Let me let somebody else in. And so I just want to share, I'm also one of the people who lost their house in the Marshall wildfire. Some of the content of this presentation relates to being prepared for fire or other catastrophe. Okay. And again, Barbara mentioned she's monitoring the chat. If you want to pipe in anytime, you can unmute yourself as we go. One home I want to highlight, this is a home from LaDonna and Mike Erickson. They live just outside of Omaha, Nebraska. And LaDonna is a graduate in the 300s for us. And LaDonna not only is an educator, but she's also a kitchen and bath designer, and she happens to be a general contractor. And LaDonna and her husband decided that when they wanted to move, they wanted to build a home that they could more or less live in forever. And so hence you see on the bottom of the slide there, it says foreverlivinginplacehome.com. And they have some wonderful ideas there that some of which she came up on her own, many of which she used from the training that we offered to her. But it is a very unique home, and I'm going to highlight one other picture of her home here in just a little bit. So the requirements for a living in place home, first off, they have to be accessible. Okay, design products that are used in the home to create that environment that's usable by everybody to the greatest extent possible. Then it needs to be healthy. You know, the products that you use, the designs, and the materials especially, basically maintain human wellness. We all know about VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, that are used in items like paint and in plywood. Like in many cases, the manufacturers have moved away from those sort of things because the market demanded that. Creating a home that's safe, that meaning eliminating hazards, barriers, making it secure, because we want to have a home that's safe for us from others who wish to do us harm. Beauty, well, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but nonetheless, it's what people want or desire, the designs for their home. Functional, it really needs to be something that's practical and useful for everybody. Then the connected environment, I really like this one a lot, because what connected environment means to me is not only me being able to connect with my family and friends, and as well as the home, but also having it be a connected home, that being smart. All this combined together allows people to maintain their independence as long as there are restrictions, with the least amount of restrictions possible. Ideally, there may be a point in time that one may need to move into a building that may end up having services to meet their needs at that time. But the intention here is to be able to make your forever home be that sort of environment forever. And then again, giving you that dignity to allow you to be able to have respect and honor, and that being for the things that are all unique and human beings desire. So I'm going to go through just some little stats here about why this is so important. First off, the current housing safety stat from the Harvard Center for the Joint Center from Harvard University on Housing Studies. Less than 0.9% of the homes currently have no steps in the house. And again, that one right there, I'm going to come back to in a little bit because it's so very important. Possibly single floor living. In my case, I like to think of it not only single floor living, but also some people choose to live on the second floor, and I'll get into a little bit of that later. But single floor living or 2-story living with conveyance, safe conveyance to go between the levels. Wide hallways and doors, again, to be able to make it so it's easily accessible. Electrical controls that are reachable from a wheelchair. And lastly, lever style handles on faucets and doors. Okay, why are we pushing for this change? Well, first off, we all know about the ADA, or American with Disabilities Act. But the thing about this is that it does not apply to privately owned homes. The International Residential Code that everybody who's rebuilding their homes are going through barely addresses the real accessibility and safety needs that everyone needs in the home. So for example, the International Residential Code gives criteria for exterior doors to have at least a clear passage of 32 inches in width and 78 inches in height, and having a landing as wide as a door and 36 centimeters deep, okay, in the direction of travel. But nothing is said about the number of steps leading up to that landing. But then, well, how does this really affect one who is using a wheelchair, walker, or even maybe even crutches or a cane? It doesn't really adequately address those people's needs. Okay. Then, on top of all this, reasons why we need to reduce falls. Well, every year, 32 million older adults have with injuries are reported was reported back in 2018. And with that, 2.8 million children ages 0 to 19 are injured each year due to falls. But more importantly here, current healthcare spending for US falls is approximately $68 billion. And with that, a lot of that cost comes out of, say, Medicare, Medicaid, because a lot of these falls, again, as the first bullet up there, happen to people who are older. Okay, and then who falls? Okay, over 1 in 4 seniors fall every year. But the more important thing on this is only at most half report having a fall. And then falls double as a result of the first fall, because you start getting worried that I fell once, it's going to happen again. And then on top of that, nearly 73% of the falls occur at the home. And 30% of these are hospitalized. And I give a little note for this. My dad was a member of the Frequent Faller Club. And every time I would get a phone call from area code 847, which is the north side of Chicago, I was wondering, is like something happened to my mom or my dad? And on top of this, every 13 seconds, an older adult ends up going to the emergency room. And then children ages 19 and under every day have 8,000 emergency room visits because of a fall. Okay, so this is just a picture of what we're doing with our home. It doesn't necessarily look on the surface all that unique in regards to making it a forever home, but there's a lot of features that we're going to go through that you may want to replicate yourself. So why is now the time to do it? Well, for example, you can't see here, but there are no steps into this house. Okay, it's just gradual pathways into the house, along with either some doors having no thresholds, or the front door here having a minimal threshold because of the design of the door. But to think of doing a retrofit down the road to take away all those steps, it's impossible to do that without basically leveling the home, lowering it, and be able to have no steps into it. The cost to replace a shower, a curb shower, if you chose to go that way, with a curbless shower that allows easy access in by a wheelchair or somebody in a walker, can easily be in excess of $10,000 because you're having to remove the tile that's in the bottom and up the walls of the way. And then to be able to put a curbless shower may require doing some carpentry work underneath the floor, and definitely some plumbing work to be able to reposition where the drain would be. If you needed a heated floor because of a medical condition such as peripheral neuropathy, if you're not familiar with that, peripheral neuropathy, what ends up happening with that is you start losing sensation in your extremities, especially your feet. Many times it's related to having, say, diabetes. And when one steps onto a cool floor, especially like a tile floor, it sends your nerves into overdrive. You just can't process what's going on with it. And having a heated floor basically is almost a necessity for those individuals. And so trying to redo a floor to have it be heated means removing all the flooring and then putting down the heated mats and then bringing electricity to it. All that can be relatively expensive and very challenging to do. So building homes the way we're going to be discussing in our eyes, is the way every home should be built. We estimate that the added cost to be able to do these things in regards to making it a forever home could end up being about 1 to 2% additional cost to the build of your home. But if you start looking at the average cost right now for assisted living, it's running anywhere from between $6,000 and $8,000 a month, and it's not going to go down. When my mom was still alive, she was paying about $5,500, and then COVID hit. She had already passed away by then, and the prices just started skyrocketing.
Louis,
Yes.
on this architectural drawing that you have, I noticed the first step that is going out onto the front porch. So what are you going to recommend to people to make this a forever home with that one step?
Well, actually, it's not really shown correctly. There is not really a step there. They're not showing a pathway that leads up into that. So they're because they're not showing that pathway, the entrance to the front door will end up being just a gradual pathway going up to it.
Good point.
So key exterior features. Okay, I just mentioned the first one is no steps into the house, which again, it's a rarity for me to ever see no steps into a home. Many times it's 2, 3, 5 steps, possibly more, depending on how elevated the home. I know, like, sometimes people who have tri-level homes, they have maybe upwards of 6 or more steps getting into the home. And then you usually have some sort of threshold, which those thresholds on top of that, many times they'll be almost a little bit more than 1 inch high. So all those things combined together make it really difficult for people to be able to get in and out of the house, even if they're just visiting you for the afternoon or evening. So what we're doing in our house, and what you should consider doing in your place, is having walkways that basically have a grade of 1 inch a rise for every 12 inches of run. Okay. ADA recommends 1 in 12, which is a harder ramp to be able to push up because it's somewhat steep. A 1 in 20 is much easier on somebody. The other thing that you may want to consider doing is a standard single width garage door is 8 feet wide and a double is 16. It makes a huge difference in regards to accessibility in the garage to go to the single wide, 9 foot wide, and then the double wide being 18 feet, because it gives you a lot more space to be able to get in and out of your vehicles, especially if you may end up having to, you're using a walker and you need that extra space to be able to have that door open while you're going into the car fully. Because the place I'm living at right now, temporarily in Erie, it's a challenge getting 2 cars in that garage, and luckily neither of us need to use anything of that sort. The other thing that I highly recommend, and you're probably already aware of that, excuse me, I need to admit somebody into the meeting, sorry. Our garage door openers that have a battery backup and are also Wi-Fi connected. The battery backup, there was one person in our neighborhood, I used to live in the Enclave, and she was a widow. She was, I'm guessing, somewhere about late 70s, early 80. And she waited too long to get out of the house. They then turned off the power and she couldn't leave her house. Luckily, she was able to connect with 911, and a firefighter got to her house, released the door with the pull cord, opened it up for her. She drove out, he shut it, and then he took off. And unless that's not always the opportunity, and she wouldn't have been able to physically outrun that fire. We all know that.
Louis,
yes.
The principle of having a transitionless doorway, is that applicable to the owner entry as well as the garage entry?
I will get to that in the next slide. That's a very good point. Okay. The other thing is that all operable windows should be casement type. That's the type that has a crank and with a bottom at like 25 inches above the floor, and then using tempered glass. I know tempered glass is usually relegated to like sliding doors or door near your main entrance or in bathrooms, but tempered glass makes the place much safer in case you do fall against that window. But the reason for, again, casement windows is it makes it easy for somebody who's in a wheelchair to be able to reach that, to be able to open that window. Ideally, it'd be great to go lower than that, but if you go lower than that, it requires a limit on how far that window can open due to child safety issues. And then our home, we're choosing to have, you saw the original picture where it had that arched doorway. That's a 60-inch wide door, but preferably to go at least 36 inches wide there, if not a little bit wider, to make it very easy to be able to somebody in a wheelchair to go in and out, but also if you're having somebody deliver furniture or appliances. The other thing that it's kind of hard to see on here, I'm going to kind of circle it back here. This is our back area. We have an uncovered area, and then we have a covered area here. The covered area is nice to be able to sit all times through the year, but it actually doubles as a fire escape balcony because the master bedroom is above it. The reason being is that in a fire, we wouldn't be able to get out of the house fast enough, even with able bodies, just because of how fast fires spread these days because of so many synthetic materials that are used. We're using electric fireplaces with heater because sometimes people need that a little extra heat in both the family room that's on the first floor, and we're doing that also in the master bathroom. And then smart system microphones at various wall panels. And again, I'll get a little bit more into that here in a little bit. All right, here the picture you see on this, you're seeing one of LaDonna Erickson's home doors. This is her front door. You see there's no threshold there. How they seal this door is it's got a unique device that as the door shuts, there's a post that sticks out on the hinge side of the door. As it makes contact with the door frame, that post is pushed in, and then a drop-down door seal comes down to be able to seal the bottom of that door appropriately. And again, her home is in Omaha, Nebraska. They get high winds, they get thunderstorms, driving thunderstorms, blizzards and the like, and she's never had anything come into her home, even having a blizzard push up against another one of her exterior doors. Her house has 5 exterior doors, all are done the same way. It takes a bit more effort to designing your home to do this, but it makes it so much easier for people to come in and out of the house. For that matter, it also makes it really easy for somebody who's bringing materials like tile or drywall or cabinets into the house, because they're not having to worry about going over that threshold and possibly damaging.
Do you want to cover the fact that she did put a heating part for her front porch?
Yes, she did put heating outside, but she found out she really didn't need it. Her concern was that the door seal would end up freezing to the flooring there in the wintertime. She never encountered that in the 2 winters that they've been in it thus far. Again, having driving rain and driving snow and then freezing, she's never needed it. So she just doesn't turn it on anymore. Other things that are being done in our home is, well, let me get at the key issue that our lot has. Our lot goes uphill. We really can't put a ranch style home on our lot just because of limitations that we have. We still want to have a small backyard, but the upper side of it is terraced, and so we really can't do much there. So we chose to go with a 2-story home. But we're basically making the provisions structurally to accommodate having an elevator in place in the home. And I'll show you that on a drawing coming up as to where that's going to be, along with having electricity brought into the attic above the elevator to be able to make that conversion down the road. And we may end up putting the elevator into the home from the get-go, but the intention here is to be able to show it. So I'm actually going to go backwards. The elevator in our home is going to be here, where it's going to be surrounded by the stairs going from the first floor to the second floor, and then from the first floor to the basement. So this is an area that they're having to deal with, making the appropriate structural support changes to be able to accommodate this, because you just can't put the elevator there with, say, flooring around it and have it be properly supported.
Louis, I'd like to address the point that whenever you have stairs in any home, that you're going to need stair rails on both sides. Don't think that it's just accessible just for one side.
It's a good point, Barbara. The stairway will have rails on both sides. The reason for that is a variety of reasons. One is sometimes when people go upstairs without having, say, an elevator in the home, choose to want to be able to help pull themselves up with one hand above them, pulling them up the stairs while the other one's sliding up. The other issue is when coming down the stairs, sometimes people don't always put their hands on the rails. And like, if I'm carrying something in my right hand is by far more, by far more dexterity than my left hand. And it's obviously got more speed because I'm right-handed in regards to placement, and it's stronger. But there are also people who may have no use of a left hand or a right hand because of a stroke or an amputation or whatever. And the whole intention here is to be able to help prevent you from falling down the stairs. So having a stair rail on both sides, if you're going down it with carrying something, because usually always carrying something down the stairs, whether it's a purse or it's a pet or something else, that's a very good way to be able to minimize the potential for injuries. All right, so let me move forward back to LaDonna's. So here's LaDonna's again. Some of the other things that we've done in here is we used smart dimmable occupancy sensors to turn on lights in a variety of rooms, like bathrooms, kitchen, pantries, owner's entry, things of that sort. We put in electricity behind the toilets. We'll cover this in a little while, but there's GFCIs adjacent to toilets to be able to accommodate night lights or heated toilet seats, or better yet, the potential for having a electrically powered bidet seat.
We'll go over that. Just wait. Just wait.
Okay, I'll just wait. Let's see. All the doors inside the house are 36 inches wide, and many of them actually hinge out away from the room. And the reason for that is that if someone fell against the door, how would you go about rescuing them? Because you can't push the door open against them. They're just way too much. You may end up injuring them further. So what ends up happening is either you need to break a window to get into the house to where they're at, or actually saw the door off. By having the door open away from where they are, now you can go in and give them aid as necessary. All the toilets are at seat height, which is basically 17 to 19 inches high, and they're elongated.
Don't you want to show that?
I will. I'm coming,
No.
Barbara. I'm coming.
Just wait.
Yep. And then the other thing here is that the walls are prepared to have 2 by 12, 2 by 10 blocking for the installation of grab bars in the future, or drop down bars, or flip down seats, which Barbara's going to show that. And then all passageways through the home are 42 inches wide. And the reason for that is that if you're having to take a right-hand turn into a room, you need to have something that's wider than 36 inches to be able to allow that wheelchair to make that turn. Otherwise, it's a very frustrating turn for them. The last thing I'm going to cover here is all flooring meets, and here I'm going to bring up ADA again, meets or exceeds ADA requirements for slip resistance. That's a really important issue, as again, don't want to slip and fall on things. Barbara, you want to take over now?
I'll try.
Go for it.
The kitchens and the bathrooms are still where you spend the most time in this house. And aside from understanding your lifestyle, we need to know your lifestyle. And we also need to know any slight infirmities that you may have. It could be a sight issue, wearing glasses. It could be that your grandkids are coming over and you want to make sure that there's a way in which they can actually partake in your kitchen and all of the things that go on in your kitchen. So even though they're going to be all ages, which is what living in place is all about, what we are looking at is how we can accommodate from an ergonomic point of view, as well as the safety and accessibility. So there is already this concept of eyes to thighs. Now, this came from a fellow kitchen designer who actually did do this design for Louis and Judy. And that is the fact that at your eye level and then down to your mid thigh level is an area that we need to accommodate the ease of the most important items you store in your kitchen. If I can leave you with that, this is just perfect. Now, there are other concepts that have to do with the kinds of cabinets and how they are related. So when you're seeing this, you're seeing an awful lot of base cabinets with a lot of drawers, instead of just doors with pull-out shelves. For instance, probably one of the most critical areas is your dishwasher. You notice that the dishwasher is raised. This is so you're not bending down further. It's raised 6 inches. Even though there could be a drawer underneath it, Maria hasn't designed that, which is just fine. But the drawers to the left of the dishwasher are literally where you're storing your plates and your bowls in an insert that actually takes care of that. It's your glasses and your mugs that are going to go in the wall cabinet above. Now, when we go through ergonomics in a kitchen, appliances actually come first. So what, of course, was specified in Louis and Judy, Louis is actually the cook in the kitchen. We had to know, how do you fix this? What's your most important meal? How is it that you want to prep and who's helping you, et cetera, and clean up as well. The induction cooktop, the new electric induction cooktop, is by far the safest and the easiest to keep clean in today's economy, which is wonderful. And it will only ignite, as you know, with the electromagnetic field with a pan that will incite it. So the idea is that and good ventilation, which is now going to be an aesthetic in this spot, is still going to be a critical element like it is in any kitchen. But we took into consideration a difference in style. So I'm going to have Louis share with you why he chose a steam oven and why the location of the normal bake oven is where it is.
Okay, well, on the right side here, I'm just going to circle over it. This is a combination of a oven with a steam assist and then a speed microwave at the top. The bottom one here, I do a lot of cooking, and one of the things I like to make periodically is bread. And a speed assist convection oven, what it does is near the end of the cycle, it will inject steam in, and that's where you get that really nice crispy crust on bread. This speed oven up above, what it basically combines 3 different ways to be able to heat things. Obviously, first one is microwave. The second one is convection. The third one is high intensity quartz halogen lighting. That combine those 3 together allows, say, a unheated oven from the get-go. You put a chicken into it, a full chicken, in literally about 16 minutes. It has cooked the chicken. It's not rubbery on the inside, and the outside skin has been nicely browned because of the quartz halogen lighting. It's a wonderful way to go about cooking, because many times, you know, I'm busy. My wife sometimes is busy, and to be able to basically take something from the refrigerator, put in there, and minutes later everything is done. It's absolutely amazing.
The point is, I think, Louis, is that everyone here on this call should look into the technology that's going to be dictating what you're doing in this kitchen and how to make it much more convenient for you as well as safe.
So one other thing that we've chosen in the kitchen is all the appliances are smart. And so I can do something like from afar, turn on the convection oven to say preheat to 425 because I want to make a pizza in there. What it's doing is it's allowing me to conserve my physical and perhaps for some people cognitive stamina with regards to I can do this from any place in the home or even outside the home. So when I come home with a take and bake pizza, it's ready for me when I get home. But again, if say I'm in a wheelchair, it keeps me from having to move over there to turn on the oven, go back to what I was doing and then come back to it. And then on top of that, it has, smart sensors that go into it. So if I'm cooking a roast, I've got the thermometer into it. It's telling me that right now it's at, say, 125 degrees. So I can keep track of where it's at because I want to pull it out, say, when it turns to, say, maybe 140 degrees or whatever I may be baking. So again, it's conserving my physical stamina. It allows me to be able to more so free me up to do other things instead of going back and forth to that oven to see where I'm at with my temperature.
Good.
So, and what that faucet that we've got here, we're going to talk about it later. Some unique things about that.
Let's keep going.
All right, I'm on it.
What this brings up is the power of lighting, not just in the kitchen area, but also in your entire home. What we are suggesting is that you think about from the ceiling to the floor. How is it that we can make our homes safer in these areas? There are different kinds of lighting out there in strip and in cans, but the LED lights, which, as you know, are going to be more efficient in the long run, also are going to offer you more color so that you can regulate how it's going to feel in the morning if you want bright sunlight from morning to the afternoon when you want to lower it to a much warmer, more comfortable feel. So you're seeing the impact in the kitchen. You're also seeing the impact in the toe kick areas. When you have large spaces, you want to make sure that they're well lit. Keep going, Louis.
Well, I want to point out one of the reasons for lighting, as you're talking about, especially brighter lighting. And the reason for that is somebody who is 60 needs 3 times more light intensity than what they had what they needed when they were 20. So hence why so many people are pulling out their smartphones at restaurants to either put on their flashlight or use the camera to magnify things, because their eye just doesn't perform the same way as it did when they were younger. The other thing I want to point out here is these drawer handles are kind of interesting here, but what you want to avoid having are like pulls or handles that have extensions to the side of them, because what will end up happening is, I'm sure it's happened to you, it's happened to me a number of times, where I'm walking out with, say a garbage bag and it gets snagged on the end of a handle. You want to have something that's going to prevent that from happening.
Thank you for bringing that up, because the kitchen is showing you normal cabinet knobs. And what we are going to be suggesting to you is that you veer away from knobs, that the ability to hold on with fingers is not going to be true for everyone, that you make sure that it is a lever and not open. Keep going. The faucet in the kitchen, which is also going to be true for a faucet in the bathroom. There are a couple out there now. Some are regulated by touch, like this one is shown, along with a lever on the side. We are getting away from any knobs, and the lever is helping you. So if you had to only turn it on with your wrist, you could, or just touch it with your fingers. There's a sensor for another brand that comes out that you can actually just wave your hand. I'm going to caution you with that one because I had a cat walk by that sink and turn that water on every time.
Barbara, I want to take it beyond that. We used to have one that was motion sensing, similar to what's here. And we had hand soap dispenser and dishwashing soap dispenser. Invariably, my wife and daughter would go across the wrong way and their sleeves would get wet because they didn't remember what it was all about. one other thing I want to point out about this faucet here on the left, which is a unique facet, is that you can, you can get ones that are smart, meaning you can talk to a smart speaker and actually say, please dispense 6 quarts of water. And the nice thing about that is 6 quarts of water for me is about the number of quarts I need to put out to be able to make pasta or boil potatoes. I don't have to hover over the sink when I'm doing that. It's right there. So again, a nice feature as to what's there. And so the other picture there, that's the induction cooktop.
This
On
is
top of
one,
that-
this is
Yeah.
one style that Louis and Judy chose, and that was the fact it could literally be recessed into the countertop rather than have a trim piece all the way around it. And the way in which it's installed makes, again, cleanup and cleaning that much easier.
So Barbara, can you go into why induction cooktops are safer?
I thought I did.
Well, part of it is if you remove something from the burner, right? After about 15 seconds, I think it will turn off, right?
That is correct. The electromagnetic field between the actual burner and the pan is disconnected.
And then the other thing is that there's really very limited heat around where that pot was. So it's safer in case you make incidental contact with that surface. The other thing that I always point out is, say, natural gas burners or open electric coil burners. You know, people sometimes in the wintertime wear loose fitting sweaters. And as you're going from the front of the counter to, say, the rear, you've got something on as you go past it, your sleeve might catch on fire. And unfortunately, sometimes older people don't have that same sort of reflexes as to sensing heat, just because their nerve transmission isn't quite as robust as it was once upon a time. And they may end up either burning, burning their sweater, or worse yet, getting burnt themselves.
Well, talking about sweater, go back to that slide, Louis. Look
Okay?
at the hardware on this cabinet in the kitchen. Do you see how it has an overhang? That overhang on that little piece of hardware actually catches things. And that's more dangerous than if the hardware was just totally L-shaped, if you understand what I mean. Go ahead.
All right, so we're on I'm gonna talk about key first floor features, okay? This is showing what our first floor is. Again, I know a lot of people choose to do the primary suite on the first floor. We chose not to do that because we like having family and friends over. Kind of a point of reference, our daughter got engaged the day before the fire. And we had a big party that night. And putting the primary suite on the first floor would minimize the amount of space that we'd have for kitchen area, entertainment area, or for that matter, even a dining area. We do not have, say, a separate living room. That's kind of passé these days. The other thing that we've done is we're putting outlets about 24 inches above the floor wherever possible. And the reason for that is to be able to make it very easy for somebody who's in a wheelchair or walker, or for that matter, somebody that may either have bad knees, hip, back, or have balance issues, or even more so, some people may have vertigo issues. If they bend down and come back up too fast, the world is spinning all around them. The bathroom, it's going to be kind of hard to see here, but this is the powder room here. This powder room has an area there that's 60 inches in diameter, which is sufficient, easily sufficient for a wheelchair to be able to do 360-degree turn in that area. That's more or less what the Americans with Disability Act used to call out for public places. Now it's gone up to 67 inches. There are other reasons for going up to 67 inches in public places. Some of
Do
the
you want
toilets
to
we
do you
have-
want to comment on the door swinging out?
Yeah, well, here, this door here, here's the bathroom. Again, I'm sorry for the blurriness of this. Here's the bathroom, and the door is here. You can see how it hinges, and it hinges away from it. So again, if somebody falls against it, somebody else can come rescue them easily. The other thing that we've done in the primary bath and the powder room here, again, it's not going to be easy to see just because I can't really expand it up all that much, is the toilet here, the toilets in those two rooms are wall-mounted toilets like you would see in a commercial establishment. The reason why we did that is, first off, to be able to give us more space by eliminating the tank that's behind the toilet and putting that tank in the wall. I've more or less gotten an extra 12 inches in that room. The other reason is, you know, it's really tough to clean underneath a toilet, especially behind and underneath the toilet. It's a rare time that people do that. And by having a basically wall-mounted toilet allows clear access to be able to get a mop under there very easily.
Second floor.
Then the other thing is that all the walls are prepped with 2x4, rather 2x10 blocking for where there may need to be future grab bars, drop down bars, flip down seats and the like. Go on. All right, Barbara.
When we talk about bathrooms, this is probably the most vulnerable room of your home. Powder rooms are going to accommodate some of the principles, but this is something that everybody needs to think about. And even though everybody knows about grab bars, oh yeah, I can go to Home Depot and just get a grab bar. What we were trying to do in showing you this slide is the fact that the strength is still based on how it's attached. Louis has covered that. The style is not going to have to look industrial. You're looking at two different styles totally here. The fact that you can actually have a grab bar with a towel bar, although I would never recommend you put it in your bathtub. And the fact that if there are smaller showers where you cannot afford to put in a permanent seat, then we do recommend this teak seat where the back is protecting you against the cold of the back wall. And the fact that it can hold almost up to 300 pounds being seated. Teak wood is easy to maintain, and the metal around would actually coincide with what you choose in that bathroom. You can move on, Louis.
Barbara, why would one want to have a towel rail underneath the grab bar?
If when you were walking out, which we have designed in their bathroom, but you haven't seen it yet, walking out of the shower door and you needed to have a towel right there, but you also had a little bit of water in your eyes and you're a little bit woozy, you wanted to be able to grab it. Well, grabbing a grab bar and grabbing a towel bar are two different things. This particular one combines the practicality of both.
And the other reason I think, Barbara, is that if you put a towel over a grab bar and you try to reach for it, you may end up grabbing the towel and you and the towel may end up being on the floor.
Period. Yep, we don't do it. We don't do it. All right, these two slides actually come from another project that I had, but the principles are still true for what Louis and Judy want in their forever home. So when we talk about a curbless shower, the one on the right, that is what we mean is curbless. Now, what's being shown here is pretty important. The material on the right is luxury vinyl tile. In order to be able to marry that material with ceramic tile in the shower, we were able to use a company called Schluter with a metal flat protection on both materials. Luxury vinyl tile has grown in the number of looks, styles, pricing, and what you're going to be able to find is cork underneath it, which makes walking much softer. You will find that it's warmer, whether you choose to put heating underneath it or not. And it's just as much easier to keep clean. Now, the ADA, American Disability Act, component to even luxury vinyl tile can be a skid resistance factor. You will notice it on luxury vinyl tile. It's slightly, but it's not slippery like some porcelain tile. So when you're selecting tile for floors, even in the shower, it needs to have a resistance factor as well. The shower on the left is showing you that grab bars are now very, very decorative. And that when you have a walk-in shower like this, being able to have built-in niches rather than even shelves on the outside make it that much easier for the smaller things to be stored and safer for you. The personal shower is actually connected to a grab bar itself. That personal shower was put there so that if somebody needed to be seated in that shower, we could lower it and order a personal shower with what we call a pause control so that you can actually turn it on and off without it spraying all over everything. That's it for me on that one, Louis.
Okay.
The toilet that we have talked about as a bidet seat, this happens to be from Toto. There are several brands that are out there. I want to first illustrate the fact that this is a grab bar with toilet paper holder that I actually have in my own home and helped me immensely when I had a hip replacement surgery. If you don't have the room in which to put in a full grab bar there, this could be another aesthetically pleasing but safe aspect for your forever home. Now I'm going to let Louis talk about his other slide on why we want bidets.
Well, there's a lot of different type of bidet seats out there. And the first off, I know some people who've purchased relatively inexpensive bidet seats that just operate with tap water. And I will be glad to show a video after we're all done here as to people's expressions as to the first time they used a bidet seat. It's actually quite humorous, but nonetheless, it's very uncomfortable to have what could end up being in the wintertime, relatively cool water being put into your nether regions, if you will. My recommendation is always to go with an electric one. And some of them have some unique features to them. The drawing on the side, a number of manufacturers have lids that open and close automatically. Again, to be able to help minimize that friction that sometimes men and women have as to you left the seat down for me or whatever. Then having the potential of having a heated seat, that for many people helps in regards to them actually doing a bowel movement because it makes it more comfortable for them. But the biggest issue here is to be able to have at the bottom soothing warm water that's coming up to be able to cleanse as it's being used. And in some cases, they can either be pulsating in regards to different flows or oscillating, meaning it can go front to back repetitively to be able to help with cleaning. And then there is many of them have a warm air dryer that will basically help dry you so that you minimize the use of toilet paper, if not totally eliminate it. Good electric toilet seat or bidet seats. What's not shown here is after each use, we'll sanitize the sprayer wand to be able to make it so that you're not transferring, if you will, germs from one person to another. High-end units also have on the bottom of the lid ultraviolet light to basically really sanitize everything in the toilet. And some also have a means of spraying the inside of the bowl prior to use. And we have 3 dogs. And when they approach one of these, when you approach the toilet when it has those sprayers to mist the inside of the bowl, our dogs will not used to go to the toilet to drink out of it. They won't do it now because they'll get a wet snout.
We also need to tell you that some of these toilets also become your nightlight. That when you walk into the room, if it senses you from a certain angle, then it will actually turn on and there will be a light that will allow you to see it. It's very
So, again,
affordable today.
And this is again the reason why every project that I used to do when I was doing remodeling and the things we talk about in our training is to have that electricity, that 120 volt outlet with a GFCI. In most cases, as you look at the toilet to the left side of it, so that you can plug it in. You don't need to do it later on. These are all things that we've been talking about that should be done now. All right, so the next slide. This is the second floor, okay? And one of the first things that we're doing in there is using smart lighting for those nighttime visits to the bathroom. What the scenario is when it senses that you've put a foot down onto the floor, well, we haven't decided if it's going to be a pressure pad or it's going to be a motion sensor. What ends up happening is it turns on, if you will, like Christmas lights underneath the bed to be able to help you identify where the bed is at. So you don't necessarily, as you're walking towards the bathroom, give yourself a Charlie horse because you've got a toe board that's just waiting to hit you right in the middle of the thigh. But what it also does in the bathroom area, it'll turn the lights on automatically, but instead of turning it on full intensity, because they're smart, it can have the lights come on at 20% intensity and also have no blue component to it. Many of you may be familiar with, you don't want to use computers like 3 hours or watch TV 3 hours before you go to bed. Although I don't know too many people who really prescribe to not doing that, but that's what's preferred to be able to help maintaining a relatively good level of melatonin. As soon as your eye starts seeing blue, what it does is it starts to suppress the melatonin and brings out serotonin. Serotonin is what basically you generate during the course of the day. When it sees blue sky, it creates a lot of it. And so we have that scenario built in to be able to have those lights go on. And then when one of us goes back to bed, the lights turn off automatically after you've gotten in bed.
I'd like to,
What's that?
sorry, I wanted to add about the vanity lights.
Go ahead.
The vanity lights, because of it being so needed for everyday things, the majority of the lighting needs to be right at your eye level. So having fixtures here, not above you, creating shadows, is very critical in vanity areas.
The other thing in the vanity that we've done is the vanity, as you see it on the right here, the doors actually hinge out and then can slide back in to be able to allow a wheelchair to roll underneath that sink. The sink is specially designed so that there's no drain plug at the bottom of it, so that what can indeed happen is have a very quick elbow at the bottom of the sink to go back towards the wall. And instead of having the P-trap be right there, the P-trap is going to be more or less adjacent and parallel to the wall to then go to the drain line going down through the wall. There's also going to be slides inside those cabinets that we can remove down the road, especially on the one that my mouse is over. But again, these two countertops are different levels. My wife is 5'2", I'm 5'10". She prefers to have her countertop be at 34 inches. I prefer mine to be at 36 inches. The other thing in here is here's this other bathroom. Again, there's that, you can barely see that 60-inch diameter circle there, but that's there again to be able to show that a wheelchair can easily go into this room. This door here hinges out again. What's not shown in this drawing is there's a storage cabinet here to allow for things like toilet paper or pads or other things you may need in the towels and the like right in the bathroom. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
There is what, again, for some people, a luxury item is a steam shower. My wife from time to time gets really bad sinus infections, and having a steam shower will help her immeasurably with regards to minimizing the impact of those. Over here, this is our laundry room. Our laundry room used to be on the first floor, now it's on the second floor. The appliances are up on pedestals, okay, to be able to allow easy access into those without having to bend over very far. In the primary closet here, some of the clothing rails, some of them are going to be kind of two-story, if you will, one at the bottom, one at the top. The ones at the top are going to have capability of being able to be pulled down to bring it down to a level for somebody in a wheelchair to be able to use. Am I missing anything, Barbara?
Tons of light in this closet area. So even though there may be room for a window at the very end of there, the light color of the LED lights in that closet are actually dimmable. So you have, when you first get up, you have the ability to see what it's going to feel like color-wise, etc., being in daylight, being in the morning light. And you can just turn it down if you're going to put on that fancy suit going to an out-light dinner. Plenty of storage here. Again, we look at a person's reaching level for their hand and going up their shoulder and having nothing critical above that 45-degree angle of your arm. But as Louis has stated, he and his wife are at different heights. So the closet had to be designed for both, with different heights, different pullouts, and all of that. You want to talk about the laundry and raised?
Go ahead. I mentioned that.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Okay.
Okay.
No.
All right. So due to time constraints, we're coming up to less than three minutes left in this. I would love to be able to cover all the design features that we've done in our home, but it would probably take like 6 hours for me to go through that minimally. But what really I want to implore is now is the time to include features that work for you now and into the future. It's so much easier to build them in now than to try to retrofit it down the road. Or as I mentioned earlier, some of these things just can't be done as a retrofit. But one of the things you'll be able to follow with us, because we're going to chronicle the whole build of our home at the website howtoliveinplace.com. There'll be photos there, there'll be videos, there'll be drone videos, there's time-lapse videos. There's gonna be lots of social media postings about what we're doing. We have a number of companies that are partnering with us on our build because they recognize the need for all homes to be done this way. So with that, we're going to conclude this, but I'm going to stay aboard. I don't know, Barbara, if you can stay with us as to just opening it up for questions and the like. I have not been paying attention to chats just because I've been busy doing this. Let me stop and share.
There haven't been any questions so far, but I am just going to share one last thing, and that is that this whole vision of what Living in Place has done has impacted internationally how people are building homes. The manufacturers see and absolutely know that this is critical for what homes are meant to do and be. You are seeing manufacturers come out with new products about every month. So be able to find a great contractor, a great designer, interior kitchen and bath, a great architect that can direct you to where you will have resources to find the most new life-changing products that are out there that will control this. Thank God Louis is a geek and he knows what smart homes is all about. He's speaking at the CEDIA conference in the next 2 days, and he's going to be picking up more and more and more technology that's coming out. So Um,
So
Marina,
with that, I want to mention something that maybe some of these people may not be aware of. Is that some people are aware of a company called Listen Up. They have an office in Boulder and also one in Denver, Colorado Springs, and Albuquerque. They are offering discounts on labor and material goods as well. So if you're thinking about going smart, but you don't know how to do it well, those guys really specialize in it. There's also, if you go to the HBA Denver, I think that's what it is. It's a Home Builders Association, Metro Denver. There's a page underneath the Marshall Wildfire Task Force showing other discounts that are available to people besides Listen Up. So it's worth going there just to see what other discounts you can get. So with that, I open it up to any questions. If people want to see this funny video of first time usage of a bidet seat, it's really quite unique. I do see a question here, or I saw a question. Okay, you're answering it.
but I want
What
you.
heights are the 2x10 blocking meant to be? We've got differing heights depending on where it needs to be. Like near a toilet, it's going to be lower. Barbara, we're talking there. It's supposed to be what?
Standing at 36, seated at 30.
Yeah. So you want to be able to do that. Now, at the same time, there are sometimes people need grab bars at an angle. And the reason for that is if you have a horizontal grab bar, I'm going to show you basically what my arm is going to be like on a horizontal grab bar. Having my wrist angled very abruptly, it can be bothersome for people who have arthritis. Okay. But if the grab bar is an angle like this, now I'm not just using my less strong forearm muscles, I'm engaging my upper arm muscles with a grab bar that's at an angle. So having blocking at a specific height, sometimes you may need to double up on that to be able to make certain that you're hitting what that person may need. Again, what Barbara had mentioned about having either a shower bench that's built into the shower or a shower seat. Sometimes it's beneficial to have, again, an angled grab bar for those people there.
I think, Louis, you can answer Janet's question about a motorized chairlift.
Yeah. Motorized chairlifts or stair lifts, as they're really known as, they're an appropriate device, but the challenge is that if you are in a wheelchair or walker, you're going to have a wheelchair walker on each level of the home that you end up using. But the other thing is sometimes the transfer off of a stair lift chair onto a wheelchair can be a challenge. So if you're going to do that, you want to make certain that the chair stops sufficiently far enough away from the stairs so that if you do get up and you don't have great balance, you're not going to tumble back down the stairs. So again, it's a great way to go about being able to convey from one level to the other, but you need to take into consideration that if you're going to need to be in a wheelchair, it may not necessarily be the right way to go. Maureen, I don't know if Maureen is still aboard, but where to get, I'm going to put in the chat session here. I'll find exactly where they're going to be putting these so that you can follow up with watching them. So Barbara, I'm going to let you, actually, I will, let's see, let me bring this up here and I'm going to grab that.
The good news to me is that the industries that are trying very hard, even though it's upgrading codes and all the fire restrictions and the impact that it has had since the Marshall fires happened, it's reverberating around the country. It just is. And there are more and more manufacturers that are wanting to address your needs. And that's the good news. That really is the good news. Thank you for
Robert,
putting the website. Go ahead.
The website's up there now. Robert, you have a question about general guidelines for framing for future elevators. That is going to be elevator specific. There are different types of elevators out there. There are hydraulic, that meaning it's a piston from the first underneath the basement to push you all the way upstairs. I'm not going to recommend those because they're going to be very expensive. The next type are what's called traction or rack and pinion. They're a motor that basically just drives you up, from one level to the other to the other. The last one is what's called pneumatic elevators. Pneumatic elevators, how they work is they will create a vacuum above the elevator to pull you from basement to first floor to second floor. And what they do to lock you in place, they'll actually bring you up a little above the floor you're going to. And then basically, if you will, the legs will then be pushed out to make certain that elevator can't fall down. Those elevators, those pneumatic elevators are circular in nature. And so each elevator has their own requirements as to how they're supposed to be done. And so if you're considering doing that in your home, you need to look into what elevator type you want to use and refer to what the manufacturers recommend. So Robert, I hope I answered your question.
Gosh, it's been such a pleasure to be with you all. Thank you for taking the time. We realize this is a real lifetime journey for you, and we hope that this gives you some confidence. Thank you, Louis, for putting all this together.
My pleasure.